Good morning, folks. This is the extended SPY report for Monday, June the 24th. Here we are taking a look at SPY first. We are gapping down at the 167.40-ish region, which was the low of Friday. And we seem to be bouncing off of that measure, but that region does seem to be relative support. So we're going to be watching it there. If we lose that level, we've got the next event is probably closer to S2 than this 78.6. But we should pay attention to it because it is sitting there, 156.87. If it loses that region, it's going to come into that S2 congestion, probably break down based on the formation. You can see that that number is 156.21. And below that, looking maybe, it gets really sloppy here. We could have a stair step at 155.14. And then finally down here at this noise, 154.13. Now, whether it takes one day to do this, I doubt it, because we're already down 10 ES points. Sorry about that. My teacup hit my mic. That's suspect, but this is the top of the gap. So I suspect that before sometime soon, we will come into this region. This does look like negative price action. This wave event here gives us a little bit more than 50. If we expanded that, hang on one second, I think I see a harmonic we might be able to use. Hold on. All right, so what we have here is a bat that takes it all the way down through this leg, being the XA leg. It gives us about a 38.2 retrace, and then this one also coming to about the midline of the shaded region. And then down colliding here, look at this. This is where the 200 is. Chances are, though, by the time this chart gets down to here, this 200 probably will have still drifted up a bit. We are sitting underneath the 50, in between the 50 and the 200 on the daily. Let's take a look at, let's go right back down to our 1 hour chart and see what we've got going. With the 1 hour chart, we are well below the 200 and the 50. On the 4 hour chart, we are also, after this morning, also well below that level. But we are sitting right back here at the lows with something that looks like bounce action, but not sure if it holds. So we know what we're going to see from the downside. For the upside, what we'll have to do is establish, we could do two things. If, with some strange hopeful event, that the stock stays, the SPY stays at 157.42 and begins to bounce, above 158.40, you're going to have a little bit of long action, and we'll be able to take that to the first measure, if it's weak, to 159.18, and then up here at the 200, which is 160.15, and then to the pivot, 160.94. Now, if it bounces back up again, I mean, I think that that's probably unlikely, but I'm going to put it there anyway, which is 161.84. 164 to 161.82. And those are probably the things that we need to look for from the SPY perspective. Yeah, that's about it for that one. So let's take a look next at the IWM. IWM looking a little bit different, right? Get the VWAP sitting there. On the 4-hour chart, let's see where the IWM is printing at this juncture. These are the reasons that I have to do these in the morning sometimes, because there's just so much gap action occurring that it's really difficult for us to pick levels that we can take the trade from. $94.63. That's the low, and we have not gotten to the low of Friday. The IWM continues to look a little bit stronger, but we are printing 94.97, and so that puts us right here. Again, that would be a beautiful place if we could stage a trade to watch it pop off of that level. Now, the likelihood that the charts stay around this region until 9:30 when we open, which is 3.5 hours from now, is suspect. So we're just going to take that for a grain of salt, know that it's right at the 200, holding the level after pulling back from here. Okay, so the best thing to do would be to wait for the breach of 95.43, and that would take us up into 95.96. That would be the gap fill event, right? 95.96 would be the gap fill event. Into the pivot would be 96.49. And then maybe back up to touch one of these VWAPs. Though it's kind of noisy here, I would say, trying to take a look at these levels, very messy. 97.12, that's a familiar number. That seems fair for us to approximate. We'll have to see what the new weekly pivot is. Does not propagate until the market opens up, so we'll approximate using the last week's pivot, because we did pop up and over all over the place, but essentially stayed in the same range. I doubt that pivot moves very much. Now, if we lose the prior day's low, that would be 94.62. If we lose that region, chances are we are headed for the gap, unless buyers are really keen on supporting the 94.35 level. That's sort of something we're going to have to watch. So if you take the short at 94.62, realize buyers can come in at that region, and so you might want to wait for it to confirm before you add. But the 50% gap fill, which is what we'll work on first, is 93.91, thereabouts. The 100% gap fill would be 93.47, and again, the reason we have these, check the blog post down in the extended SPY region for the protected content. You can find these split out, all these levels written out. If it gets below this, then you take that, and so on and so forth. That's what we're looking at here. The level below that is 90. Yeah, it looks like 92.89. All right, and that's what we'll be looking for. If it really, really collapses, it could fall into these lower levels. The market is in a little bit of a free fall right now. It is pulling back. A lot of folks making money on the short side here. And that's what we're supposed to do when the charts start moving like that. It's just still difficult to carry things overnight because, I mean, certainly if you take a look at the blog, we gap up, we gap down, we gap up, we gap down, we gap up. Friday we gapped up, today we're gapping down. All right? So very, very difficult to take these trades looking like that. All right? Now, let's take a look at the Qs. The Qs are sitting well under the 50 and the 200. Notice the IWM is the only one that's sitting above there, but the Qs have also filled the gap. Continuing downward, the next level of support is at the 61.8. It did bounce quite heavily at that 70 level, at that 69 point, this 69.97 area, right? And this morning, down, printing 69.93. It is the only one of the three that is lower at this juncture than it was 2 hours ago. All right, and that line in the sand, 69.93, is somewhere around here, right? It still has not lost the low. None of these guys have lost Friday's low, right? And so below 69.83 is a clear shorting event. All right? We have a clear shorting event also if we pop into 71.06. If we lose that level, right? If we pop up and we lose 71.06 after trying to get it, then that is also shorting action. We could also come to the top of the gap, which was 71.31. So you want to be really careful around that area. Make sure it is really on the reversal event if you see it at 71.03 to take the short. All right, so let's look at the levels that we have to trade there below 69.83 or at the loss of 71.06. We've got shorting action that will take us probably to this area first, which is 70.18. And then we'll get to the prior day's low again. And then we're going to move into this congestion event right here. I think this is a key level, 69.29 or 25, excuse me. That's a very, very key level in my mind because it's got significant congestion sitting there. And then the next region of congestion, 68.85. And 68.48. Now, could it be that we come all the way down into this area? Could be, so we're going to put it right there, 68.10. Remember, we are in a natural pullback event. And so that's something certainly to watch for. Yeah. 67.39 would be S4. We'll see what is going on right there. Let's look at what's happening on the top side. What happens for us if we do this? If we come in and hold the 69.94 level, or it pops up even more and gets us up over this region, we are going to be able to take the long once it gets above 70.61, right? Or we could take the risk and take it right off the pop into 70.61. And then we have that 71.07 area that we could come into very easily. And then we get into this pivot. Um, we should think about this top of the gap, right? When you see this here at that 71.31, that might give us a little trouble since it's in the middle of the gap. This pivot of the prior day becomes less important. Then, let's see what this number is. 71.46. 71.88. And then 72.16. All right. Once it gets there, it's in the top of the next gap event. And so you just want to look at that. The 50% mark is 72.50. And then the top of that gap is somewhere around 72.68. All right. That's it, folks. Good luck trading today.